Hi everyone, and welcome to the Bad Astrologers Q&A video for June 2020. We got some awesome questions this time, and I can't wait to get into them. We also got a few folks who were kind of stuck on what question they wanted to ask. So before we dig into everything, I want to take a second to talk about the anatomy of a great astrology question. It's actually pretty simple, not that complicated, and I hope that this helps you the next time either you have a question for the Q&A with me, or if you are consulting with an astrologer. I do offer readings and I do give a discount to subscribers. So what makes a great astrology question? So a really easy option is to just ask the astrologer, what's happening in the stars right now for me? If you're looking for, a year ahead or what's going on, and you need to orient yourself to where all the planets are in your chart, that is a solid place to start. Most of my readings, if it's a new client, we're gonna dig right in and we're gonna look at the outer planets. What are they doing? Because they take a while to transit, and that's gonna show the real big life lessons that you're learning. So that's Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Always leads to a good time, and usually those will be pinging something, maybe a natal planet in your chart, some sort of aspect, but that's a good conversation starter if you aren't sure where to begin. Looking at someone's chart in general can be more of a challenge for an astrologer. I like doing it. I love the moment when I get one of your charts and it's just there in front of me and I get to let it kind of speak for itself. But sometimes if you're totally new to reading a person's chart, or maybe the aspects are kind of all over the place, that might not speak as well right away, or it's maybe not as clear or specific. Also, usually when somebody comes to see an astrologer, if they aren't just monthly subscribers, there's a damn good reason why. They may not know how to phrase it just yet, but part of my job is helping you be clear and honest with yourself about the reason why you came to see me, and hopefully give you the answers that you're looking for. So you can ask someone what do you see in my chart, and we can do a play-by-play birth chart thing. But obviously for this, that's not really going to help. We don't have enough time. That's going to take 45 minutes to an hour. You could even spend longer. So for something like this, you could say, pick a specific topic to be the theme. So tell me about who I am in relationships. What do I need to know about the way I do relationships? Or alternately, tell me about my approach to career. What do you see? Where are my talents? Where are my weaknesses? How can I make the most of that? That's always a good conversation starter as well. And then to conclude, if you ask me what your life purpose is, I will smack you. I understand we might not be in the same room, but I can try. The thing is that, there's the nodes, and, there are certain things in the chart that can show, what you might be striving for, and goals that you may have, like the midheaven. But ultimately, your life purpose is yours and yours alone, and you should not let anybody else dictate that. Not even the universe, not even in anything outside of yourself. Only you know and hear, and so always remember that. Anyone who's going to tell you what your life purpose is, they're not, well, frankly, they're not very good astrologers. So anyways, let's get into it with the first question from Kel, which I'm very excited. Hi. I know we've been mutuals on Twitter for a while, so this is pretty cool to finally see your chart up close and personal. You were one of the ones who said, I don't know what to ask, where to begin. So just see what you see. And this is easier for me to do for Kel, because we did have kind of that backstory. I knew a little bit of what your vibe was, I knew a couple of your interests and where to begin. But so obviously you are a Cancer, Capricorn moon, and Gemini rising. All of these are things that I love. I really think that you have the loveliest chart, and I am admittedly biased because we share some influences, Gemini in the chart signature. And I think we vibe pretty well because you have Gemini rising, I have a Gemini moon, so there's kind of that instant comfort zoning type thing. And we share Venus in Virgo, which is kind of my brand. I talk about it all the time, and I just love talking to other Venus and Virgos because it is, Venus in its fall, it's a challenge, but so many of us are just like lovely and warm-hearted and not the frigid bitches that the world makes us out to be. Anyways, so what I wanted to focus on, you said, did anything jump out to me? And yes, what I want to focus on for you is this really gorgeous transiting Neptune conjunct your natal Jupiter in Pisces, which is happening in your 10th house. So this is a big deal for many reasons. First of all, Neptune and Jupiter co-rule Pisces in modern astrology. Obviously, Jupiter was the traditional ruler, and then once Neptune was discovered, it was ultimately ascribed rulership of Pisces. So that's having both of those synced up together is about as supercharged as Pisces can get. It's the most Pisces situation. And it's also being revved up by late July's Jupiter-Neptune sextile. So it's like you have transiting Jupiter, sextile Neptune, and that same Neptune on top of your Jupiter. You see what I mean? So it's like multiplying, amplifying, reinforcing one another. So it's not like it's happening in a vacuum. It's more like happening in a vortex, so to speak. So Jupiter and Neptune, I've talked about this in the forecasts, like the February forecast and the July forecast, especially with the Jupiter Neptune sextile. So Jupiter and Neptune together are interesting because they rule over similar things. So they're both party planets, right? You put them together, you can get a very Dionysian, Bacchic sort of revelry and desire to just go out and have a good time. Which, in the 10th house, like, it feels very celebratory. It feels very, like you've put in a period of difficult work, and like you've fucking earned the right to just like enjoy the fruits of your labor. I think that's very much what's happening here. And I think in Pisces, that's especially true. They're also both planets that have to do with spirituality and faith. With Jupiter being the traditional priestly Hierophant type, and Neptune being the more guru. I think of like Shiva sitting outside of society, cross-legged, or doing the dance of destruction. So when you have them together, it is a very heightened intuition and spiritual understanding. Not so much intuition as like a sense of danger, but intuition as like feeling like the divine is imminently present with you. So in the 10th house, that could be a lot of different things. I think you're in a place where you're looking for something more in your career, right? Like you need something that's going to fulfill you ecstatically. Like it's not enough for you to just have a regular, like, this brings in the money. Like if it's not, initiation into the mysteries, you're like, this is boring and I can't focus. But the good news is that, having Jupiter in your 10th house is sort of a protective force. Like you're just gregarious and wonderful at work. People adore you. And Neptune right there. Neptune is also about being of service. So I think what you're working on right now, it's very creative and can be of service to a lot of people who need it to really break down boundaries. And with Jupiter sextiling in from the side in your, I believe it is your, hold on, I want to look. Yeah, your 8th house. It's like, I feel like that could be hidden influence of, it could either be like a sexual inspiration, like a muse, or it could be, if you work in academia or really anything where you're looking for funding, it could be funding for something finally coming through. It might not be as much funding as you want since Jupiter is coming at it from Capricorn, but I don't know, with that much Jupiter, I think there's really, really lovely things headed to you. So please keep me posted on what happens. This is kind of a once in a lifetime sort of arrangement. So I would be very curious to see specifically how it rolls out for you. It's looking good. Finally, you didn't think I'd let you get away without talking about some of the magic asteroids in your chart. So did you know that you are a Circe person? You have asteroid Circe on your sun, which is no surprise to me. Circe has a very trickster energy. She is able to shapeshift and change her appearance, and I think your social profiles have a very trickster quality to them. And add to that the Gemini rising, right? It's just layer on layer on layer of trickster vibes, which is tons of fun. I also noticed that you have asteroid Magdalena on your Venus. Obviously Magdalena is Mary Magdalene, and if we go through the lore and how it lines up in the episode Asteroid Magic, she can also be the Scarlet Woman, which is kind of spicy. So I think there might be some sort of past repression issues that you're always seeking to work out through kink, or just like, being drawn to divine sexual energy. It's really interesting to research. It says, someone once told me, like, Venus and Virgo can have like sexy church vibes. I feel like Magdalena there really spikes it right up. So beautiful chart. Thank you so much for letting me read it, and I really hope this helps. Let me know what happens to you with this double Jupiter. It's a big deal. Okay, next. So Laura, she says, I've got a question about transiting Saturn being conjunct my natal Venus. Yes. It's in that position for me on and off all year, yes. And I'm curious about what that means in a general sense, and also whether the fact that it is exactly conjunct on July 5th, just after the lunar eclipse, is a thing. Yes, more on that in a minute. Capricorn seems to be where everything is going on right now, and I'm wondering if I should just hide under the blankets and keep my heart out of sight for a while, or whether I'm better off putting myself on a super strict schedule like you do with little babies and plodding through whatever comes. Would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for all you do. Thank you for being here. It's a joy to take a look at your chart. So first of all, I'm seeing a couple things going on. Yeah, it is definitely a thing. The fact that that aspect is going to be exact on the same day as an eclipse, it just kind of heightens it. It emphasizes it to make sure that you're really getting the message. So I would say when it happens, really write in your journal and see what's happening there. You asked what it means when Saturn and Venus align, and I don't know how much of this we've talked about, but just to really drive it home. So Saturn and Venus together, especially anytime Saturn aspects Venus, whether it's by transit or in the chart, the key word is worthiness and value. And so Saturn on Venus can be a period where, for whatever reason, you are really struggling with your inherent value. You feel, if you're having any self-esteem issues, they definitely come to the fore, and you're kind of forced to look them straight in the face. You're forced to confront the voice of that teacher from the 5th grade that told you that you would never be any good at whatever your chosen profession ended up being. Those things, we carry them with us. And Saturn and Venus together, it could be someone who unceremoniously dumped you, or vice versa, and it left a sting. And so Saturn on Venus is a time when you have to learn to be your own security, which is terrifying, right? Like, it's okay to want closeness and intimacy with someone else, but I think at the end of the day, ultimately, Saturn and Venus together is about learning to find that intrinsic value within yourself so that you can demand it from without. So looking within to demand it without, right? So it's happening in your 2nd house, which again has to do with your self and net worth. The keyword security just keeps coming up, and you were asking about, like, should I close my heart off, or should I try in relationships, or like, what's the next step? And so what I really want to point out is that this is not, like, Venus is involved, but with the placement of it, I think that this is not so much about relationships as it is about what is underlying those relationships, right? That sense of self-worth and like what you're trying to find externally, right? Any advice I could give you would be like, don't use your relationships as a security blanket if you can help them, even the ones you have with friends or family or people you've known forever. Like, there is a grace and a grit and a dignity that comes from that quite sometimes difficult Saturn transiting Venus. Oh, another thing that it could be, so again, when we talk about value, so Venus can also be our money. So Saturn, I know we're in the midst of an economic decline right now. Saturn on Venus can definitely be a time when you're having to pinch your pennies, change the way that you spend. And that can be hard too, when you're like, okay, who am I without, you know, all of these things around me? Like, what does that look like? Hold on. I promise I don't have COVID. I just have allergies, so. Anyways, yeah, so back to security. When we're talking about relationships, I did notice, you know, you just had the last Cancer solar eclipse in your 8th house, which is also about, it's more about intimacy and what you share, which can be your heart and relationships or like actual things that you own. So the last Cancer solar eclipse and a trio of them happened last month. So you should be feeling some closure with that. And that's why I'm really feeling that this is about either about money or about like your sense of security. Like, it could be a good time to go to therapy and really talk through some of that, a good time to journal through some of that, or, you know, at the end of the day, like, I feel like self-care is such a shitty buzzword, you know, and I'm not saying self-care like go out and buy yourself a bunch of expensive shit just to do it, because that wouldn't be right in this situation either. But I think the best practice that you can do for yourself now, your strategy of sort of putting yourself on a childlike schedule of like, okay, we're doing this this day and this is the bedtime and so on and so forth, like, that is a sound strategy, and I would definitely lean hard into that. Like, it's really great for inner child work, this is, right? So like, treat yourself, give yourself the parenting that maybe you didn't receive. Like, if you were your own child, what would you expect yourself to do? And that's what you should do. And the good news is that Saturn transiting Venus, like, once it finally departs in December, you will sort of have this sense of like, you will feel so yourself, so confident, so together, and I'm just excited. I'm excited to see how that feels for you, because it is, being self-assured in your beauty is just, I wish that for everyone. Not that I'm perfect at it all the time. I rarely am. I have Venus in Virgo, so trust me, I understand the struggle. But it's gonna go great for you, and let me know how things end up. Mwah. Alrighty, next up we have Lindsay, who says, both my brother and I have known since we were teenagers that neither of us eventually wanted children. Cool. I'm also chosen childless. We grew up in a safe environment with supportive, albeit divorced parents, and all in all, our childhoods were pretty standard, or fortunate even. So it doesn't seem like the byproduct of our nurture. Now in our mid-30s, and at that age where one reportedly starts feeling the pressure of the old biological clock, neither of us have changed our minds, much to our parents' chagrin. We are very close in age, 1 year apart, so I wondered if there was an astrological tie-in. Are there specific markers for childlessness, chosen or otherwise? I love this question. It is a great question. It's so specific, and funny enough, I've actually had 2 other clients this week ask this question, so it seems like some of this really coming forward. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like the Cancer Capricorn eclipse cycle or something, but I really appreciate you asking. And in short, yes, there are plenty of astrological indicators for childlessness, chosen, or I guess it would be infertility. In this case, we're looking at chosen childlessness. So what I would tend to look for would be, what are the malefics doing? Are they fucking things up in the 4th, 5th, or 8th houses? All of those can be indicators of fertility or children in some way. The 4th house being family and motherhood, the 5th house being like the actual act of reproducing and bearing a child, and then the 8th house being like the sexual aspect of it, like the reproductive organs, like the uterus and the penis and so on. So for you, Mars, one of the malefics, is in your 8th house, which can make, it can just sort of turn you off from wanting to get pregnant ever. Totally understandable. Mars it can point out an area in your life where you're just like, I don't fuck with this. I don't want it, right? So that's totally natural. Mars in the 8th house, conjunct Mercury retrograde. So I think there's also an element of like feeling like you might fuck it up, right? Like if you did it, you would like feel misunderstood or afraid that you wouldn't be able to communicate well with your, hypothetical children. You also have Lilith. So Lilith is, she's sort of this disruptive influence who's been, very much had a feminist reading in the last several years, and she definitely can indicate the choice to be childless. So Lilith in the 5th, like I said, that's a pretty solid, like, no thank you to the kids for me. And she's squaring that Mars-Mercury retrograde conjunction. So like you see things stacking up, like those hard aspects of those difficult placements where you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna pass, that seems fine. But another like really big, like the first thing that I tend to think of with this, either for like a difficult relationship with a mother or a difficult relationship with your own connection to being a mother, is hard aspects from the moon to Saturn, which you have. You have the moon square Saturn. I also have the moon square Saturn. And if you look in the charts of many famously either childless people or people who have had difficulty with the reproductive act or with family, that is really, really common. And similarly, your brother also has the same. He has his sun and moon square Saturn exactly. So that explains that. His Venus is also square Saturn. So I think that, like we just mentioned in the other question, like issues of worthiness or deserving or having enough to go around come to mind. And then Mars and Saturn, both traditional malefics, are in Scorpio, which rules reproduction. So that's a big no for both of you. You were absolutely right. I also noticed that you both have really strong personalities with very prominently placed Plutos. And this is not like a bad thing, but people who have a strong Pluto in their chart, people might call it controlling, but it's like you want to be in control of your environment. It makes you feel strong and put together, and this can be a very powerful career trait, but like it could be almost like a Highlander kind of thing. Like there can only be one who needs children when like you have your own career and stuff to worry about. So thank you for asking such an interesting question, and I hope that this helps affirm your choices. And yeah, people, I'm 31, people continue to question my choice. They're like, your biological clock will kick in, and I'm like, no, it won't. But yeah, hang in there and you're doing great. Alrighty, next up is Carly. Carly says, she points out she has a lot of stuff happening in the 10th house and says that she thinks she should ask about career. So obviously after looking at my chart for 2.5 seconds, you can see that it's very important to me, and I am an extremely hard worker to a fault. So basically what stands out about Carly's career. So Carly, you are absolutely right to say that. There's tons of just heavy career indications in your chart. So you have Jupiter in Aries rising, which makes you a great entrepreneur or leader. But it also can give you a tendency to overdo just about everything. So that seems very emphasized in what you wrote to me. And then you also have a very, very heavy 10th house with your Sun, Mercury, Neptune, Pallas Athena, and Midheaven all in Capricorn, with Neptune and Athena closest to the actual Midheaven point. So this means a lot of things. I think that the Sun and Mercury together can point out like an illustrious career as a communicator of sorts, right? And I think with Neptune there, art is definitely indicated somehow. And Pallas Athena is associated with writing and craftsmanship. So it kind of doubles down on that, you being a storyteller, craftsman type person. Neptune and Capricorn make really interesting bedfellows. And I know like a lot of people of my age group are that. I also have Neptune and Capricorn. I love it because Neptune is sort of the boundaryless, formless void, and that desire to achieve, mystical ecstasy with all that is, which is cool and it feels nice, except when you have to like pay your taxes, right? So having Capricorn there, it gives it more structure than it would normally have. It allows you to partake in those sorts of wonderful, artistic, mountaintop experiences, like sublime experiences, while still being grounded enough to like make a profit from your work, and not, just have all your wealth dissolve. So I love it. Having Aries rising and Capricorn on the midheaven, this is a very, very strong, almost like to the point of being a workaholic. I could see as like work is your safe zone. It's what you want to leave a powerful legacy. But I think more than that, someone to remember is that with Neptune there, so Neptune is also compassion and healing. And so the thing that makes it different than other Capricorn midheavens, Capricorn midheaven is the type of midheaven that would be like, I'm here to get my money, my boundaries are up, and I am okay with, like, emotionally, I am okay with this. This is transactional, and that is how I operate. For you, with the Neptune there, like, having your career be a transaction just will not work for you. Like, you have to feel a deep sense of inner intuitive fulfillment from it. And that doesn't mean that, like, you won't have odd jobs here and there to pay the bills. But I think that making sure that you're in an industry where you can get some sort of intrinsic satisfaction from that is very important, more so for you. I also noticed that your moon is in the 6th house, and the 6th house is your health and habits and like your day job type routine. So, that could mean a lot of things. I think you need a lot of comfort day to day in your work style, and your routines probably fluctuate a good bit. Like the phases of the moon, you can probably like track your moods at work based on the phases of the moon. And as far as like places where you would spend a lot of time, I could see you working in like hospitality or a caring profession of some kind. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with you too. I hope that helps. I know that's kind of all over the place, but you have a lot of energy to work with, especially that Jupiter and Aries rising is like, man, you're front and center, like ready to go. Which I could tell from your email, you were like not afraid to just like make the first move and say, what's up? So I very much appreciate that. Thanks, Carly. Okay, the next one was another person. I'm not going to say their name. I'll say the first initial, A, who said, I was just curious as to if there was anything that stands out to you or is interesting about my chart. I am very interested in my natal chart. Thank you in advance for any information I could provide. So this one was a little more... I just kind of looked at the chart signature and I give you like high level overview, but next time head to the beginning and try to take a peek at those tips, and I hope that will help you be able to craft a question and like really get some specific information. But as far as generalizations, you are a Scorpio sun, Capricorn moon, and Libra rising. All of which I love. I'm very biased. We're both Scorpio suns. But your Libra ascendant is late in the sign at 28 degrees. And so it butts right up against your Jupiter in Scorpio, which begins this massive Scorpio stellium that you have. So it starts with Jupiter, and then Mercury and Venus are conjunct one another in Scorpio. And then right after that, you have your Pluto, which is within a degree of your sun. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets in Scorpio. So you definitely vibe more Scorpio than Libra, or really anything else. You're a very Scorpio heavy person. So what does that mean exactly, right? I think if we look at the chart ruler, it can tell us a lot. So Venus is your chart ruler. Since Venus rules Libra, Venus is the planet of beauty and glamour and love and partnership and harmony. But with Venus in Scorpio, it really emphasizes all of those planets in Scorpio. You're looking for depth, power, intensity, you know, what goes on beneath the surface, which is so interesting because Libra is kind of focused on the beauty. But I think the phrase that comes to mind with this is like inner beauty. Like you're always trying to peel back the layers and reveal like the beauty underneath, right? I love it. And it's also, you know, Scorpio being your second house, there's a keen sense for business and instinct for what's going to be really valuable. So I don't know if you're like really crushing it, making money, or whether it's just like something that quickly guides you through life, but it's a very, very powerful Scorpio stellium. Mercury and Venus right together is kind of nice. Like your Venus is a very thoughtful Venus in the sense of like very cerebral, very quick-witted, and with Scorpio involved, you have this incisive way of making jokes and reading through the bullshit. So, you know, it's kind of like, what is the phrase? Like the iron fist and a velvet glove is definitely the vibe I get from your chart. But I hope that helps you. It was so much fun. It was so much fun to read all these charts. You all are wonderful. I hope that eclipse season has treated you great. Please get in touch with me at the end of this next month for the Q&A video. I'm going to do my best to start posting those on the 20th so I can get it all wrapped up on the 30th. And yeah, y'all are the best. Thank you for keeping this podcast alive, and thank you for supporting me. It means the world. Mwah. Bye.